And now, this week's edition of Big Face with your host, Samantha Jane Tilton.
Hey guys, welcome to Big Face. I'm your host, Sammy Jane Tilton, and my guest today, Peter Flihan. He's an on-camera actor, a voiceover actor, a community firefighter, and I can say this from personal experience, an all-around team player. Welcome, Peter.
See, now you're just being too kind already.
No, because you're so kind. I have much to say on this already.
Well.
But I'm really glad we can finally do this.
Me too, and I'm glad to be in the company of so many other kind actors and creatives that we've had the chance to work with, because that's what it's all about.
It's all about that. I will say there's certain things that I want to talk to Peter about and that we've discussed talking about. But I want to just say, so those of you that know that I've been sick, that know that those of you that know how bananas it's been, Peter has been so generous with being flexible with us trying to do this for a while now. I've wanted to have him on the show, and it's been kind of a crap shoot with my health. So Peter, thank you for being so generous with your time and flexibility. I greatly appreciate it. It says, from every communication with you, it says so much about who you are.
Well, Sammy, thank you. I mean, honestly, if we're not about that real caring and emotion, then we're not about anything else.
Man, I'm so happy to get to know more about you today. Where do you want to start? There's so much.
God, I don't even know where to start. I mean, we can start biz-wise, how I got into the business, which is a whole different game. It's so non-traditional, kind of.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, right now I live in Westchester County, which is about an hour's north of New York, but born and bred in Staten Island. So, went to college in the Bronx at Fordham University. So I don't get far from New York. I have this New York thing in my blood.
Yes, so, you're so New York.
And I love it. I love everything about it. But, I grew up to a very traditional family. So, I was going to go to college and I got an economics degree. But everything else I did in school was, I worked with the Mimes and Mummers Theater Group. And, and of course, as a kid, I always wanted to be an actor, but you don't think that's a real career when you come from really, second generation immigrant families. It's like, be a doctor, be a lawyer, 100%. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
what is your background?
Actually, my dad is Lebanese and Italian, and my mom is German, English, and Welsh.
Interesting. And what do people, okay, this is very funny. So what do people think you are in the acting realm?
That's great. It depends. Like in the summer, because my dad's skin tones are darker than my mom's. If my mom's skin tones were any lighter, she'd be clear. So like there's a little in between there. So I tend to book a lot of, ethnically ambiguous.
I was going to say you're so ethnically ambiguous. That's great for your career.
But it's funny, like, when I was first coming up and because I've been trying to be an actor since 2001 and being successfully one since about 2005. But when I was first trying to get in, I really just wanted to do voiceover to begin with. And I was training actually with a great casting director who's still around, but not in the game, Richard Reed. And at the time that he met me, my hair was like shoulder length.
Really?
So, yeah.
Oh, I wish I knew you then. That's awesome.
Yeah. In fact, my kids like to say, I used to drive them to nursery school with friends of theirs, and their friends used to call me Jesus because I had darker skin and longer hair. But, he looks at me one day and he says, he says, if you cut that hair, he's like, I could cast you in on camera and you could do both. So I did,
like,
and I never went back. I have to admit, I kind of miss it because I think it would especially with the gray, it would look really cool now.
It would look really cool.
But I don't have the patience for that in between length.
I don't have the patience. Everyone's always like, when I take my hair down, they're like, you have they're like, you have so much hair because it's always in a bun. It takes so much patience to have it down, pin it back. It's a pain in the ass.
It was, but at any rate, so so I get a lot of like that ethnically ambiguous stuff, and and cast for a lot of stuff in those in between roles. So
So how did you get started?
Well, I was on my second career at that point. Out of college, I was an economics major. So my first career I was a foreign currency trader. I used to trade the dollar against the Japanese yen. But on the side in that place when I worked in, they also sold a service to banks where they talked about where all the various foreign currencies, what the highs and lows were. And they're like, wow, you've got a great voice. Why don't you do that for us? So I was like the voice of like, and the Japanese yen was 194, whatever the like in that total phone tone thing.
Yes.
Um, and then they wanted me to go out to Chicago and start their office out there. But at the time,
Hmm.
my wife and I had just begun to date, and I really didn't want to walk away from that. But also at the same time, Reuters had come out with this new box called the Reuters Deal Box, and it was the
Hmm.
first electronic trading there was.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, this is going to take over the business. Like, I'm not going to be needed as a broker. And so I said, I think it's time to like leave that. And at the time, I was thinking about going to law school because that was the other career you were allowed to have. You could be
You were
in
allowed,
business or law.
exactly.
So I took the LSATs and I scored in the 99th percentile, which, I was like, okay, so maybe I'm meant to be a lawyer.
Mm.
But at the same time, my dad was starting a company. Now, my parents have been divorced since I was 8. So I grew up with my dad in the picture, but didn't really know him really well. I mean, I'd see him once a month or whenever
Right.
he came by. But and he's like, I'm starting a company. Would you be interested in doing that? So I thought to myself, this would enable me to stay in New York. This would really enable me from a non-business perspective to really get to know my dad really well.
Mm.
And so I did that. So for the next 17 years, I worked for a stuffed animal company designing stuffed animals with my dad. And we traveled a good portion of the Asian Pacific Rim, like spent a
Wow.
lot of time in Seoul, Korea and Hong Kong and Shanghai, earned my black
Wow.
belt in Taekwondo, all that kind of fun stuff.
That's amazing.
So flash forward, we're starting to
Wow.
look at the
Yeah.
toy business, and the toy business was transitioning from pretty much everything to just like video games was becoming the thing.
Yep.
So a lot of companies, a lot of toy companies, I mean, Toys R Us went out of business, but all these local companies like Child World, Light and Leisure, and then all these other, stores that we grew up with, Caldor,
Mm.
Bradley's, Ames, all these,
Yes.
all that kind of stuff.
Caldor.
Yeah, Corvettes, all that
Yes.
stuff,
Man, I used to love that.
Right. So we're at a point where like we had over 60 really great clients. And of those 60 clients, about half of them were going out of business for one reason or another, because they were getting eaten up. Walmart was eating everybody's business and, all that kind of
Yep.
stuff. So
Yep.
I said, gee, what am I going to do like next? I couldn't quite figure out what I was going to do next. And I knew that I really wanted to try this. And my wife, God bless her, we were married, we had kids. She's like, you really should do something that makes you happy. This is something you've wanted to do. Why don't you really commit to it? Give it a shot, see where it goes, and we'll see what happens. So I actually got involved in a film festival called the Garden State Film Festival, which is now like in its 20th year, I think.
Wow.
But at that time, they were in their first year. And I met 4 really important people then. Diane Raver, who was the director, and she's like the director emeritus now. And the film festival is coming up the end of this month. So, she was really great. She put me in touch with a gentleman who's unfortunately no longer with us named Manny Berlingo. And he did voiceovers and did voiceover work. And she introduced me to 2 other people, one of them, which is Renata English, who's a company called Friendly Faces Management out of Monmouth Beach.
I remember them, yeah.
And Renata still reps me to this day because she helped me build everything, and also introduced me to an incredibly gifted actor who's also not unfortunately with us any longer, PJ Brown. And PJ gave me, over the course of that weekend, the greatest education I'd ever had about being a professional actor. And most importantly, when we were done and I figured he had filled my head with stuff, I came from a business background. So I'm like, dude, how can I repay you? Can I like send you and your wife out to dinner? And he's like, no, here's the thing. It wasn't mine to own. It was mine to give you because you asked for it. And when someone else asks you, just give them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was one of the most important lessons I ever learned, and it's, even to this day, like, I'm like, I do mostly voiceover, some on camera, but I became really good at a home studio. And a lot of actors were put in touch with me, like by other agents of mine, like, hey, Peter, help them set them up. And I've had actors very recently say, can I Venmo you or something? I'm like, no, listen, there's plenty of people who are in worse cases. We're not doing great, but there's plenty of these people in worse cases than us. If you want to give to like the voice actors of NYC Emergency Fund or the SAG-AFTRA Emergency Fund or the Actors Equity Fund, give to them. I'm like, but promise me that when someone else asks you for something, you'll give it just as freely of you. That's all.
I love that. I love that. I think it's like from every communication that we've had and trying to just talking about being on the show, and even
Right.
before, just when you would reach out about the show, which I have comments to make about in a good way, guys.
Okay, good. Okay.
I'm like, this guy's in trouble.
This man, this is it.
Him and his bullshit. So from, talk about an all-around team player. You talk about giving to others and sharing. One of the things you wrote about was respecting and sharing the energy. And it's so significant. I think it ties into what you were just saying, but I didn't have a lot of people around me when I first started to try and do this. I knew nothing, and I didn't have people freely giving. Those ones that did, that gave me a little bit that I could figure something out. It meant everything to me. It helped me tremendously. To do it all by myself, for anyone to do it all by themselves, it's not the way it should be. We should all have, I believe, have support as much as possible. And so even when I'm teaching and stuff, or somebody asks me for advice, or like something that I'm doing, somebody talked to me recently about a podcast, and there's that part that can go like, oh no, but this is my thing. It's not my thing. It's not my thing. My thing is my thing.
Right.
If there's anything I've learned, that's our thing. That's everybody's thing. If it's mine to give, I can't
And listen,
hold on
you look
to
at
that.
the people in our business who are really successful and we really want to work with. And you've had a lot of them on your show, like Dave Bellantoni, Craig Garrity, Andy Roth, Ramona Patera, on all
Great
different
people.
sides of them. People who are about sharing and, and giving and caring and just moving the energy. It's not, like you say, you could hold it really tight, but then it's, it's going to grab through your fingers.
Right.
It's yours to give back out, and it comes back to you tenfold.
It's the best feeling when I know if anything I did was helpful, or I saw somebody shift or change or be able to get better. It's like, it's better than anything. I seriously, I never thought that could be possible. And I get it. I get it now.
Right. And, and look at this whole COVID for the past year. The people that I'm in touch with are groups of other men in my breakdown, both on camera and voiceover, and we meet regularly. And, in other businesses, people would be like, that's your competition. I'm like, no, look, my only competition is myself. Not because I'm great, but because I can only authentically be the best me I can be.
Yep. And
I want them to be the best me they can be, the best them they can be,
Yes. Yeah.
Because, that's part of the thing that keeps you sane. The thing that I see ruin people, and it's sad, is like when they're like, oh, I can't believe I didn't get that job. I'm like, dude, you weren't meant to get that. He was meant to get that, or she was meant to get that.
Yep.
That's okay.
Yep.
That's totally okay.
It's totally okay. And it's especially working in casting, knowing how much goes into actually getting it. Like I got pinned for something more recently for a network show. Thank you. And I didn't get it.
But that's just as good.
I was like, I didn't even expect to get it, because even though I got pins, I was like, I know what the chances are after that. That does not mean I'm close to getting it, because there's so much that goes into it. But I did my job. I felt good about that. I felt, and so, I wasn't supposed to, but I brought my best, and that came through, and that's it. That's all I can do.
And it's funny, I remember like one of the first auditions I had, and I came out of the room, and this is back in the day when we actually auditioned in person, 85 million years ago.
It feels
and
like
there were a
now.
whole bunch of, guys in my breakdown outside, and I can't remember who it was, but someone said, what happened in the room? So I told them, I said, listen, you're going to get 2 cuts at it. The first one right on the page. The second one, make it your own. It's going to be a medium, cut. And another guy on the bench was like, yeah, right. And so I left. I remember where it was. It was at Endeavor when Endeavor was a thing.
Yes.
So, right.
I know. Is that space still there?
Nope.
It's Endeavor's gone too?
They're gone. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know. Listen, that's a whole other conversation, because
I know.
but the next time I saw the actor I'm talking about, he said, it was exactly like that. I'm like, absolutely. I'm like, I would want you to know whatever you could possibly know to bring the best you to the game, because, at the end of the day, I'm not going to book everything. No one is.
Nobody is.
But if you pass that energy around, I don't want to put him on the spot, but like, let's talk about Craig for a moment. I've been in the room with him, and he makes sure he's not blocking you, and he gives as much as he takes back. And you're like,
yep,
these are the kind of people you want to be in a room with, because good stuff's going to happen. really cool stuff's going to happen.
It's, I'm so glad you threw that name because and if you're listening, one of my favorite people that I've connected with in all of this time. And because you feel that and those are my people. That's why, like, I knew I so wanted to have you on the show. I so wanted to connect. I know you from casting, but we don't know each other super well. But you always have great energy, and just even getting to know more about you through our writing over this time. You're a gift. So I'll stop going. So
no,
yes,
stop, really, please. Because we're actors, so we have egos too. So no.
You ever hear that expression, like, I'm the biggest piece of shit in the center of the universe?
No.
It's like, how actors are so hard on themselves, and they're like, so they're the biggest piece of shit, but they're in the center of the universe, so it's all about them. It's like, I always love that expression because I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So sharing the space and the energy. So,
and it's
huge.
It just, again, because the business isn't the job. If you book the job, God bless you. It's great. And, the right director and the right crew, you're going to have a great time on set. No question about it.
Yeah.
But the business is the work you do in the audition and the callback room. And those people that make it past, a couple of different years, the people who are really actors, who are interested in sharing that emotion, and really making real situations out of, unreal copy.
Imaginary. Yep. Exactly. Right. Why are you successful?
I don't know if I consider myself successful. It's so funny. I still have that business thing in my back of my brain. And, successful means like, those top 1/2 of 1%, which none of us are. Yeah. I book my fair amount of work, and I'm thankful that I do. And sometimes I try to figure out why, but it doesn't usually serve me because, the reason why I think the reason why it took me so long to get tread in this game is I looked at it like a business too much. Yes, there are aspects of show business, like I'm going to make sure, my size cards are right. And I'm going to make sure that I know, how to fill out all my forms, and I'm going to be professional on set for that 100%.
Yeah.
But I was concentrating that because I came from a business background, and I think that also lends itself to, like, I was used to seeing customers when I was selling stuffed animals, and I'd be like, I've shopped their stores. I know what they need. Let me give them what they need. And if I walk into the room and as an actor and I'm like, someone else is casting, like, what does Dave want from this? That's not the answer.
Right.
The answer is like, it's in the script. Maybe I can talk to the, the person who wrote the script, or I can look at those little notes, or I can work with the actor that especially if it's a partner scene beforehand, and like, let's figure out, what this is really about. And, and I think the transition to that is what's given me any success, so to speak. So.
It's interesting. It's really interesting because it kind of flip-flops a lot for people, where people are told, actors are told, it's a business. You have to start looking at it like it's a business, which is true, because it is. And it's not just, if I just have a dream and a burning fire for it, but I don't know how to do the footwork to get anywhere, it's like, it's a dream and a burning desire. But if you know the steps of the business, that helps. But yes, it's death to any audition for me if I walk in trying to figure out what they want and give them that, because I'll never be able to be who people want me to be. I can bring my interpretation and then I can take direction, but I can't mind read who you want me to be and feel good about. I have to. My gift is my instinct, is my interpretation.
And the special secret from the other side of the camera, which is sometimes they don't know what they want yet. But,
most times.
Right. But if you come into that having made a solid choice, one of two things are definitely going to happen. Either A, it's going to be miraculously, they're going to have an aha moment. It's like, oh yeah, that's it. But at the very least, if you've made a solid choice and you weren't right for that role, the person on the other side of the camera is going to remember, wow, they made a choice. That was really great. Wasn't the choice I needed for the spot or this role, but I want them in the room next time because they make choices.
Yes. my old acting teacher would always say, an actor's only as good as his choices, or her choices. Or your talent is in your choices. That's what he would always say. So true. You don't make a choice. And, he would always say, in general is the enemy of all art. Right. And it's like, yeah, you don't make a choice. But I've seen people, and I say this to people all the time, I've seen people get callbacks that made a choice, and it was so not actually what it even was, but it was so interesting that they were intrigued by the person and brought them back for a callback, even though it wasn't right. Right. So it's,
and that's our struggle, because, we are born to want to communicate a message. That's our nature. Yeah. And we're actors. So, we want to be loved. Maybe a little more than most humans do. I don't know.
Yes. That need.
But when we free ourselves of that, and, I had this conversation with a great VO compatriot of mine who recently put down a take that he's like, I did the take for the specs. And he's like, and then I did a what the hell take. And he's like, and that's what booked it. And I'm like, that's exactly right.
It's exactly right. It's exactly right. It's that it's there's like hardly any way to like really express it, but that's exactly right.
Right. Because listen, when we're auditioning, and it's even in front of a camera, there's no difference between auditioning for a spot and live theater, because that's what you're doing. And when you see great live theater, it's lightning in a bottle. When you see a great audition, it's like lightning in a bottle.
Yep. Do you think that if you had to, and look, I don't want you to get in your head and think about why you have the success you have, or why things work out for you sometimes. Would you attribute it to kind of what we've been speaking about, being a team player, walking in? Do you think that not only does that make you a desirable person that people want to be around, but do you think that it works to enhance you in a business?
I think it works, but I also think there's another part of it. The other part of it, I think, is that something we touched on earlier. I book multicultural because I come from 5 different, really distinct, almost ethnic backgrounds. But growing up, that wasn't easy because you didn't fit in some of those. Like, for some people, I wasn't Italian enough to hang with them, or I wasn't German enough, or whatever, And I think I think a lot of actors come from a place of not just wanting to be an actor, but maybe even motivated from a place of questioning who they were at some point. And I think that desire to find those spaces combined with the work, who is it that says that? I think it's Stella Adler. I'm not sure. I think it's Adler that says, whether or not you're doing great work to be an actor, you're definitely doing great work to be a human. And I think when you combine that desire to be heard and communicate with a desire to better, I don't want to say refine, but better be who you are, you're going to be a great actor.
It's funny because yes, my teacher used to study with Adler, and he would always say, like, your life problems are your acting problems. And the thing is I think a lot of what has made me a better actor and why I can connect to scripts when I see them or read them immediately is because of my human experience, the growth that the things I've had to go through, figuring out who I was, who I want to be, connecting my past and it's a lot of emotional, mental work, right? But it's made me better,
It's those, I think it's those hard surfaces we rough up against that smooth us. It's those, look, I came into this game at 39 and I'm going to be 57 in July. Never afraid to talk about that because age is,
I love that.
It's years other people didn't get. So especially now in this year, I'm so thankful. But every one of those life experiences, everyone, especially the hardest ones, have made me better communicate stuff, better to be, bring more to the table so that, like you say, you look at a script and you're like, oh, I remember that, or I can touch that, and I remember, there are all those little things that made you a better person and made you a better actor.
Yeah. You came into this game at 39.
Yeah.
And I just want to touch on that for a second, because I'll speak for myself. I didn't come in until more recent decade of my life. And other people, everybody else I knew studied, went to school for it. I had no experience since I was a kid, and then I stopped doing it. And I think I still carried around feeling less than, or I started too late and blah, blah. And I know that that's BS. And I just want to point at you and say, it's not BS. Peter started at 39 and Peter's a working actor and you love it, I assume.
I love it, but imposter syndrome is real. You start to think
It
like,
is.
and there's voices in your head that that say these things, or voices sometimes not in your head that say these things. And you've got to remember, if you're honest with yourself and you're pursuing what you really, really want to do, and this is it. I mean, look, we know what the reality of the business side is. We didn't get into this business because we thought we'd be millionaires.
Right.
Yeah.
And if that's why you're getting in, just get out.
Yeah, get out right. By the way, that's a public service announcement. If that's what you're getting in this
Yes.
business for, do something else. I don't care what it is. But we did it because there
So
is
funny.
that, at the end of the day, there's that moment that we can never say out loud in front of the business people. I would have done that for free, because
Yeah.
it just felt like it was incredible.
Yep.
I went on this journey, and a 30-second commercial is still a 30-second story.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not Shakespeare, but sometimes feels pretty damn good.
Yeah. It's fun. If it's not
Yeah.
like, it can be really fun.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm going back again, but
No, go ahead.
you grew up with, you said immigrant parents. Yes.
Well, my parents were second generation. I grew up
second generation.
all my grandparents were immigrants. So
So so I grew up with immigrants all around me. Like I listened to, cause I grew up in Long Island. I seem like a little Jewish white girl from Long Island, but like
but you seem like more importantly, you seem like a New Yorker.
See, and that's the important thing.
Yeah.
I went to a doctor yesterday and he's like, at the end of the appointment, he said, where are you from? And I was like, oh, Long Island. He's like, yeah, I know that. Where? in
Yeah,
Long
bad.
Island?
What if
I was like, I thought I lost my accent. He's like, yeah, no.
Right.
But I grew up with, my mother was from Argentina and my grandparents were, Eastern European. They were Holocaust survivors. And so we had all these different accents, speaking all these different languages in the house. And there's so much that goes into the cultures that we're brought up in. And,
Yep.
And you just said like there, with yours, it's like you can be, a lawyer or you can be.
Or a doctor.
Right. Exactly. That's a very Jewish. I'm Italian also. I'm a Jewish
Right.
Italian. That's very much that.
Right.
So how was your family about how or were they able to support you in doing this?
It's interesting. My parents were supportive of it because I was an adult,
Yeah.
But when you're a kid, it was one of the things, because when I was a kid, I wanted to be on the radio in the worst way. Like, when I would watch stuff like the
Wow.
stuff that I remember, everybody likes to watch TV and they like, to watch Mel Blanc. I want to be Mel Blanc. Now I can't do 1,000,000,001 animation voices, but I want to be Mel Blanc. More importantly, I couldn't wait for Christmas to come so I could watch The Grinch, not because I love the story, but because that was, Boris Karloff narrating it and Thurl Ravencroft, singing it, and I'm like, I wanted to be those voices, because they were just like, they were exciting, and everybody wants to do movie trailers. Of course, everybody, wanted to be Don LaFontaine as a guy.
Yep.
But, you start to listen to New York radio, which was really interesting because you had great stations on Long Island, great stations in the city, great stations in Jersey. But, some of these jocks like Scott Muni and, Pat St. John, these great voices, you didn't even care about the music half the time. You wanted to hear those voices, and I think New York is like that. But, when we grew up in New York, especially people like you and I, who are more and more the norm, being multicultural when we were kids wasn't so the norm, but now it is. Now New York, one of the reasons I can't leave New York is because, look, there are plenty of people who aren't Italian that make great Italian food.
I know.
Plenty of people who make great bagels who aren't Eastern European. People who know, who run a great Irish pub who don't speak English.
Right.
You don't have to be those things,
It's amazing, right?
Right.
So,
So,
man.
and I think that's, and that to me is one of the reasons why, not to say that there aren't great cities.
Yes.
And I've certainly seen a lot of them in other businesses I've traveled in. But when you get a place like New York, where people are different and they want to be with different people, like they purposely want that, what happens? I miss auditioning for a lot of different reasons. And one of the reasons is the food. There used to be this great place on 27th. I get Korean Mexican fusion. Where are you going to find that except in a place like New York?
It's so true. And it's so, Where do you, I mean, I don't know where you live now. Oh, you live in Westchester. That's right.
Yeah, right by the Tappan Zee Bridge.
How is it? Like, have you been into the city? Because I was like being in there. It's just,
Yeah, it's kind of difficult. Our daughter lives in Manhattan. She works,
Okay.
she works in Manhattan. And I haven't been to her new apartment yet, but I've actually been into the city. The first time I was in before it broke up was right before St. Patrick's Day last year.
Okay.
And at
Okay.
that time it was getting like really crazy. Like, people were completely out. So fast forward, the next time I found myself in Manhattan was right before Thanksgiving. I had a voiceover booking where the client had rebooked me for a new spot, which is great news. You love that.
Yeah.
But they wanted to be in the same studio, same microphone, same engineer, because we wanted to, replicate. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
So I had recorded it at CityVox, which is in the Film Center building on
Yeah.
9th. I was able to find street parking in the middle of the day, which never happens.
Which never happened.
Never
Those of you not
happens.
from New York, that does not happen. Just so
Middle
you know.
of the day.
Yeah. Wow.
I was there early enough. I figured, maybe I'll grab something to eat afterwards. Let me see what's. Places were boarded up. Now, I'm born in 64, so I remember New York in the 70s when people were like, New York is dead. New York was never this dead in the 70s. Now, do I think it's going to come back? Yeah, I think New York is an epicenter, and people, and it has the luxury of being a port city in many ways. So I think,
Yeah.
there's a lot of good reasons to come back to New York. I think a lot of things about our business have changed forever, unfortunately. But I'm hopeful that sooner rather than later, people want to return and they remember, like, what it was like to be with people, what it was like to seek other people out and, hear other expressions that, I say I live in Westchester now, and I do. But I'll tell you, other than people who are born here and have therefore had their whole lives here, my experience in the time I've lived here has been that the people who move to the suburbs really want to limit themselves in general. They want to find more people like them.
Yep.
And
Yes.
and that's something I really didn't experience until I experienced it through working and being in the city a lot more frequently for auditioning. And then as our children grow up, who are now adults, they're 26 and 24, and watching and realizing,
Still babies.
yeah, realizing how limited the world I was showing them here was,
Mm.
in many different ways,
Yeah.
and I didn't want that for them. I wanted them to understand that, the broader you expose yourself to, the more you had an option, you more had options. And I think at the end of the day, it's not like I'm not calling people out who decide to do something that's comfortable for them.
Right.
But I think that's really what it is. I think whether we're talking about cultures or politics for that matter,
Yeah.
people recede into the zones they want to be in because there's a comfort level with just accepting that and not hearing anything else. And I think, look, we're better actors when we hear other stuff. And I think we're better humans when we allow ourselves to really listen and hear other stuff.
Yes. I spoke with somebody recently and it felt challenging. But I embrace that because challenging is good. Maybe it's good to be challenged and I should think twice about what I'm thinking and be open to a new perspective.
Right.
And maybe I can grow from this.
Right. It doesn't mean you have to change.
Right.
You might.
Exactly. And it's just,
Right.
but I come from the mindset, I always want to be better. I always want to grow. So even when it's painful. So if you say something that's challenging, I may go, that's effing annoying, but I'm
Right.
listening, So, and I love that about our business, even doing
Yeah.
these interviews,
Oh.
everybody is different.
Listen, I love the stuff I've gleaned from some of your guests on the business, no question about it. But when you go off on tangents about other stuff, that the real meat of it, that's the good stuff.
And it's so funny because I never want to cut things short because that to me, I'm like, oh, if people want to tune out, they can tune out. But this is the good stuff.
Yeah.
Getting to know.
Doesn't it make
that's
it
the good
makes you
stuff.
richer, there's stuff I didn't. It's funny because there's stuff I try to communicate to my parents who are in their 80s,
Yeah.
that I see they don't see, and I still want them to broaden their horizons. But by the same token, there's stuff that I can't see because now I'm 50, 57, and my kids are on the not so much on the cutting edge because that's really like the early 20s, but they're still exposing me to new things that I hadn't thought about. Now, that
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to inculcate all of it, but I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to be excited by it. I'm going to hear those new perspectives. And, maybe something will change. Maybe it won't, but I got to be open to those new voices.
How the hell are you so open and thoughtful and kind? Where does that come from?
I think it comes from a place of being wrong a lot. I mean,
Okay.
honestly, I think at a point in life, everybody wants to be sure because sure is comfortable and safe.
Yes.
And you're like, I want to be sure. I think as the years have gone on, I've just become not unsure, but recognizing that not only do I not have all the answers, but I probably don't have any of the full answers. I mean, there might be one or two things I'm holding on to that have stood the test of time. And that
Yep.
tells me that they're real, and that
Yes.
they're embedded in bedrock. But I think the more I have been able to admit that I'm wrong, I didn't do that correctly. I wish I'd done that differently, or maybe I should have done it this way. Or, I think the more you show people that you're vulnerable and that, like all human beings, you're just as flawed as anybody else, the more it rewards you personally, the more you grow from it. And I think that, and the more you appreciate other stuff, I mean, I think that's it. I think really you have to accept the fact that we are all works in progress. We are all looking for more light, more illumination, more, and it's a journey. I'm going to try to wake up this morning and be a better man than I was yesterday. I'm going to fall short. I'm still going to fall short no matter how much I want to try, but maybe I was a little bit better than yesterday. And tomorrow, maybe I'll be a little bit better than I was today. And that's the journey. Because really, what else is it? I mean, no one knows when they're going to die. Thank God. I mean,
I know.
But listen, we've lost a lot of great people
Yep.
in an untimely manner this year.
Yes.
And it could have been easily just as much you or I.
Yep. 100%.
And I don't know when that day is going to be. I debate whether or not I want to know when that day is going to be. But, I don't know when that day is going to be, but I do know this. If I have that moment of realization that, oh boy, this is it, I want to know that I didn't necessarily climb Everest. That'd have been really cool, but I didn't, but I want to know that, like, did I do the most I could with whatever I had, whatever the tools were, as imperfect as they are, did I chip away a little bit at the stone and make it a little bit smoother? I hope so. And that's, I think that's it. I think the value is not in the milestone. The value is in the journey.
There's that, I love the Bronx Tale quote, Sonny, and he says, the saddest thing in life is wasted talent.
Oh.
And it's one of my favorite quotes forever, because that's the thing. And to me, that's talent in any way, potential in any way. And I feel like chipping away, like you said, every day. I'm not going to be perfect. Keep trying to be useful, be as useful as I'm meant to be in my time here in this universe. And try and be a little bit more useful. The things that block me today, maybe tomorrow I could be more aware and say, nope, not today,
Right. And does that make you feel great when you're doing that work? It feels great.
If I'm not hard, if I can be gentle about it.
Yeah, it's tough sometimes.
It's
because
tough
we expect a lot of ourselves. We can't help it.
I know. So the gentleness, I love hearing you speak about it, because you have such a gentle way of approaching it. And
right. Well, and I'm not good at it yet. I mean, I'm still working at it. We all are.
We all are.
There's still a lot of things I wish were a lot further along, but you can only do what you can do.
And then go to the gratitude. Like, look at all the things that are,
right.
that have, that's wonderful. There's so much. Talk to me about, there's one thing I was laughing, which I want to ask you about.
Okay.
Well, now I'll just ask you, because in one thing you wrote, you said how Disney World and New York City are very similar. And I was laughing. I'm a huge Disney World person.
Oh, so are we. My family is. Yeah.
I've gone like every 3 years since I was a baby until these past few years.
Oh no, we have to. This would be a whole nother hour. I'd have to ask you where to stay and what do you like to do.
Oh my God. Oh God. I'm like, I want to ask you. So go ahead. Right. So tell me how they're similar.
Well, we can talk about how, like, Epcot is similar because, well, now it's not because, they've had the hiring problems, and they've cut
Yeah.
back on staff. But like when you go to Epcot and you go to those little countries, the people that are in those little country pavilions are actually from the country. So I've been lucky enough to go to Germany and France and England, and Italy, but not a lot of people have. Sometimes they can only go to Disney World and they get a chance to see that. But really at the premise of it is what I like about it. It's not a place for thrill rides. Certainly most of the rides aren't thrilling with the exception of maybe Rock and Roller Coaster or, Tower of Terror. There's not a lot of thrill rides there. The premise that Walt Disney had when he constructed it was he wanted to have a place with a mindset. And really Disney World, you saw what happened at Disneyland, like you could still see the world outside the gates. He wanted a place where he could have this construct where people could stay within. And the truth is, that's what New York does a lot. We frame this construct where we want to have this society of multiculturalism. A lot it's the same thing. So yes, Disney World is Disney's a business. I'm not pretending it's not. But, when I go there and I interact with Cinderella, that's Cinderella. It's not an actress. That's Cinderella.
Yes.
When I greet the Main Street Fire Chief, that's the Main Street Fire Chief.
Yes.
And
it's
because we accept that tacit, situation, we are putting ourselves in that different mindset to live in that world. I'm not in any Main Street of anywhere. I'm in Main Street USA.
That's
and is it a fantasy? Well, maybe. Yes, it's a business and I choose to accept that. But when I go into New York, I have a couple of choices. I have been the New Yorker who says, hey, I'm parking here.
Yeah.
But I've also been the New Yorker who said, was this your spot? Oh, I'm sorry. Or, the thing I love most about being a New Yorker recently is, especially when we were down in the Flatiron District, when when there was a lot of casting places down there, you'd see a lot of tourists. And I would seek out the tourist trying to find directions. It didn't happen so much because everybody's got phones with maps on it. But every once in a while, you'd find somebody who had a question or something. And I would sometimes walk them to where they wanted to go, or sometimes make a suggestion. And they would be like, oh, thank you. And I would say to myself, if one person goes home to either it's Wisconsin or Paris, or I don't care where they're from, and comes back and said, I've heard all these things about New York, but this guy took us to where it was and he was right. It was the best pizza or it was the best bagels. And it was like, I never would have known that. I became an ambassador of New York, just like a cast member becomes an ambassador of Disney World. And I even point with two fingers, just like at Disney World. So listen, that's that premise that
Yes.
Because listen, the thing I love about Disney World is not that the rides are exciting or anything. It's that mindset I put myself in, and it's the enjoyment that my family and I get out of it by letting ourselves be, listen, we know that Romeo and Juliet aren't real characters when we see theater, right? But does it make the story any less real? Is the emotion any less? Do we not cry when they both die within moments of each other, even though we know it's not a real story? Because it's real, because it's real.
Because we choose to enter that imaginary circumstance.
Yep.
As if reality. It's funny. It really is the same. It is. Good point. I laughed when I saw that, and I was like, I can't wait to hear this. But that's well said.
Yeah, it's we go back there whenever we can. About every other year now. Maybe we're trying to go a little bit more frequently, but I'll tell you one of the greatest things was we went last time we went was to Food and Wine Fest when all the countries have all these different, and then they had like 20 other booths of different cultures and foods and alcoholic beverages. And if there's anything better than being exposed to different cultures, it's being exposed to those cultures when your kids can legally drink. It was loads of fun.
Oh, that must be freaking awesome.
So great. So great. Like we're talking about how this pairs with this wine and man, it's incredible.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I always it's so funny because my dad is kind of a stickler. He won't drink with us. He'll have a beer at dinner or something, but he won't drink or he's not like that. He's just more, and I'm like, did you ever smoke pot? It's like, never. It's And it's like, I ask about my mom, like, did mom ever smoke pot? My mom, he's like, maybe once or whatever. She was such a hippie. She definitely had smoked a lot of weed, you know? But I love how, sorry, mom, wherever you are.
Right. Well, but but again, we look, my parents are still alive and they may or may not see this, but I think a lot of the times the choices I made when I was younger were made because I was told fallacies. This will kill you. And then it didn't kill you. Oh, wow. Not only did it not kill me, but I really like that, So, and that's a problem.
More.
But when I look at the other sides of it, alcohol was always present in my house. Like I could have had a beer in my house whenever I want to. Now, that doesn't mean that when I became of legal drinking age, I never drank too much.
Yeah.
But when I first got to college, there were a lot of people I know who didn't make it past first semester because all of a sudden, wow, they had beer. And I'm like, yeah, beer. Okay.
Right. That's a lot of what's
and that's at least what I try to bring to my own kids. I told them when they asked me about drugs, I gave them honest stories, positively and negatively.
Yeah.
And I think they made really great choices about it, especially when your kids are really young. I think sometimes I have memory problems, and I wonder, was those memory problems from other things? And I saw, they're very careful about making choices when they were much younger. And that's different than choices you may want to make when you're in your 20s.
Right. Or 30s.
When your brain is much more formed.
Yes, I know. Yes.
But I think that comes from communicating your own faults and your own human frailties. I never wanted to be the hero parent. I wanted to be here's what I've done. Take this if you decide to become a parent, and disregard this that I still didn't get right.
Yep. I appreciate that. I respect that. I feel like that's when I used to talk to my mom, she was my mom, but I could also be open with her, and she was my friend too. And she would that ability to like have an open conversation is so significant with your kids. I think it's very, very meaningful. So that's wonderful. That's really, I was going to say something else about that, but I now my brain, who knows from what from, but it just forgot.
It's my wife's an RN, and she laughs because it takes me so long for me to take like a Tylenol or something if I have a headache. And she's like, because she knew me in high school. We didn't date in high school, but she knew me back then. And she's like,
wow.
There was a time when you would have taken anything and you had no idea where it came from, but you won't take Tylenol, and you know what it is. I'm like, okay, all right, fine. You're right again. Okay.
That's so funny. Oh my God. That's really, really funny. You sound like you have a wonderful family.
I am really, really blessed. I've known my wife since high school. We didn't date in high school. I was a senior and she was a freshman. I was a very different person then. I honestly didn't think I'd make it past 30. I used to, as a kid, I just didn't think that would happen. She was just as sweet a person then as she is now. So we were friendly, but I was like, she couldn't be with someone like me. She should be with someone, much better than me. And then we went on to different colleges, dated different people. And then it so happened that, our paths realigned again when she was a junior in college, and I was in my first year out of college. My mom and her second husband and her parents just happened to move near each other, like within 5 houses. And her dad was in the financial services industry. So when he found out that because in order to get to work in time in the morning to leave Staten Island, you had to be like on a 5 o'clock ferry in order to make it there on time. This is pre-internet days. You couldn't trade, electronically. And he's like, let me give you a ride into work. So he would pick me up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I would drive in with him, and he'd drop me off on Wall Street, and I'd walk to my house, to my business from there. But, he would talk to me about how the guy she was dating wasn't good enough for her, and then she came home for the summer, and actually the guy that she was dating went to work abroad someplace. So, we would hang out just like friends and have dinner, and, we would talk about stuff, and, and I would talk about things that were working or weren't working for me, and she would talk about things that were working for her, and I was like, huh. So, we'd have dinner a couple of times, and then a couple of times we had maybe a little more than dinner. But I always knew that at the end of the summer, I was probably going to be it.
Yeah.
And we got to that Labor Day. I remember it was Labor Day weekend, and her boyfriend was coming back from where he was, and she was going to go visit him. And I said, look, that's great. I said, if you get there and you find out that, you really missed him, I said, then I wish you the greatest of happiness. Go back to school and, enjoy everything. And I said, but if you get there and something doesn't seem right and something seems missing, I said, I want you to know that I'll still be here. And she came back. And, and then we went on our first date. And honestly, there were a couple of hips and starts in there, but once we were on our first date, I'm like, yeah, this is going to go someplace really, really quick. So,
I have the chills. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm really fortunate. We'll be married 31 years in June.
Congratulations.
And she's just a blessing every day. She's still the same person she was, but then of course so much more, because now we have the experiences of this 31 years together, and even the, all the highs, of course, and even the lows, even the struggles, and and two fantastic kids. Our daughter and our son are just, they're not kids, but they'll be our kids forever, no matter how old they are, of course.
They're your babies, yeah.
And they share with us completely, everything that they're doing, and highs and lows, and it's just so rich and beautiful. And when we get to our business, and the business side of it, I just want to make more money so I can spend more time with them. Because that's all I want. It's really cool.
Really cool.
And who knows, I mean, there was no saying it was going to actually, make it all the way, but we did, I'll tell you, we did two things early on that I think are valuable for anybody to do who's considering being with anybody in that kind of a commitment. And one was, we had a really long engagement. We were engaged for 1.5 years. And over the course of the 1.5 years, we said, okay, let's make it a point to talk pretty regularly. And we'll talk about something different every night. And if anything is ever like, we can't get past this, then we know we probably can't make it, because that's going to be a problem. Like if there's something that we don't agree on and we can agree to be different about it, well, that's different. And that's usually, that's what happened all the time.
Yeah.
But if there's something that's a deal breaker, let's find out now. So we did that. And then the other thing was, after we got married, and I say this knowing full well that she loves my family and I love her family. But I was marrying her and she was marrying me. Our families weren't deciding to get married, but they did,
Right.
So, and our families are similar, but very different at sometimes. So I don't remember who said it, but I remember us saying, coming to an agreement. I said, okay, look, I love your family, but they're like aliens to me. And I know you love my family, and they're like aliens to you. And the way they operate is completely different, but normal in both cases. So here's the deal. When push comes to shove and there's something that we can't necessarily square, I'm going to handle my aliens. You handle your aliens. And most importantly, never once will I look at your aliens through my lens, and you won't look at my aliens through your lens. And that really made a lot of things a lot easier, because there were sometimes our families had questions about, and we're like, yeah, no, this is just the way it's going to be, and
so interesting.
And we're so blessed that her family now moved to North Carolina, and I miss them greatly. They used to live on Staten Island, and we saw them all the time, but we really haven't seen them much in North Carolina. But my parents, oddly enough, who are been divorced since 1972, they both remarried. Unfortunately, my mom is recently widowed about 1.5 years ago, but they both remarried and moved 1.1 miles from each other in New Jersey.
Really?
So my kids growing up got a chance to know all their grandparents really, really well. So, and I'm really proud of that.
That's so nice. That's really, really nice.
So, I mean, look,
yeah,
I'm not, I'm not a millionaire. Probably not going to be, but that's something I like.
We'll make something. We'll make it happen. Don't worry.
From your lips to God's ears.
Right. Yeah. You know what? But I think the same way. I want to do what I love, what I believe I'm meant to do and bring into this world. I want to find a way to do that and make money, to not have to worry, and live a purposeful life filled with love and the people that I want to spend it with. Yeah. I don't
Because
think
when
there's
you're
anything
doing that,
better.
like when you're doing work and it's rewarding, we don't even think of the paycheck.
I know.
You know?
I know. I have to like make myself think about it. I'm like, okay, I have to
Yeah.
I have to charge something, or I have to, because
Right.
I have to, but I love it so much that it almost doesn't seem like I should. Like,
And here's my law about that. I don't do paperwork except earliest I do paperwork is Thursday evening.
that's what earliest you do paperwork.
Yeah, because if I do it if I start doing paperwork Monday, Tuesday, I'm in a business mindset and I will not get called back for anything.
That's so smart. That's so smart.
Because I'll be about the business. Like, what does this pay? Up, forget it.
Yeah, that's so smart. That's such a smart thing. Yeah, because I swear to God, it's just numbers. They matter to some degree, but like,
right.
It shouldn't matter to take us out of what we love. And that's
right. But if you address it on Friday, you have the whole weekend to let it get out of your system.
Exactly.
And you're right as rain on Monday morning.
Dude, I dig you. You're awesome.
Come on.
You're so nice to be around.
This is going to be the mutual admiration club here.
This is cool. And I just want to say, and guys, I want to tell you this as well, Peter, and I'll tell you because it involves you. You, from the beginning of me starting Big Face, you don't even know me that well. And you have been such a strong support. I talk about you to my boyfriend all the time. Like he's like, oh, who are you interviewing? I'm like, remember I told you about Peter, the one that's always so supportive? You are that to me. You were in my mind and my heart as somebody that like, it truly, it runs deep. It means a lot that you support and that you care and that you're generous with your time and your energy.
But it's clearly because you're on that same journey and you accept the journey. You're not doing listen, we haven't seen each other in easily over a year.
Yeah.
Easily.
Right?
I mean, I think the last time I saw you, I passed you in at Envision, like one of those things, and I was going in for something else or, like that.
Yeah.
Thing. But what I get from the way you've had the courage and the strength to do what you've done with this podcast, I get more of what I would have gotten that I probably shouldn't have gotten back then anyways, because you had a job to do and I had a job to do. We couldn't sit there and yap forever because we both had stuff we had to get done.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of it. I support what you're doing because it is so honest, so brave, so full of courage, and so about the journey.
Thank you.
I think whenever normal reemerges.
Yeah.
I think we're all going to find, those of us who have honored that, we're going to find so much more depth in our work because we've been robbed of some of it.
Yes.
So we've been able to see it. And again, we are thankful and lucky enough to be alive and relatively healthy.
Yes.
But, it'll make us better people. And it'll definitely make the work that we do so much more special and so much. And we didn't set out to do that. You didn't do this podcast because you're like, oh, let me get a whole bunch of more followers. That wasn't the purpose.
Yeah. If I look at those, I try not to even care about that because it defeats the purpose. And it's not about that. Yeah.
Right. It's not about getting to that milepost. It's about that journey, And again, when I was talking to my wife about, this coming up, I'm like, I'm so excited about this. And she's like, why? And I'm like, because she's on the journey. And I'm like, she's been on the journey. And like, at the end of the day, you have two sets of family. The small set is the set you were either born to or adopted to or welcomed into in some way that you had no control over.
Yep. Everybody
else is who you choose. Who you decide to surround yourself with. That's your family, and not everybody becomes that close. Some people are just friends, but when you find those people that want to be on that journey, isn't it like, look, we're just talking over the internet.
Yeah.
But it's great.
And
it's real because we're on the journey.
Yeah, man. I'm like, this is what it's about for me. Like, I hope people listen because I want people to get to know you more and see what this is about. But this is what it's about for me. We like when I'm casting and you're at an audition, it gets crazy. And that's the one thing. There's people that are great that I know I don't get to talk to as much. Right. And this is such a gift to get to talk to
It
you,
is.
to get to know you more. First of many times that we'll connect and you'll come on the show
Right.
and that will walk the journey.
And and I don't know John from Adam, but I've seen the podcast. I'm like, oh, now I know him. Now, now I know him. Like, it's like, and I even commented on a couple things he said. I'm like, because you've chosen to surround yourself from someone else with the courage to be on the journey.
Yep.
And doesn't it make your life? I mean, doesn't it make quarantine that much richer for you?
Oh my God. We live in a studio apartment.
Right.
And we don't even have a door to separate us.
Yeah.
Thank God that he is my best friend and I'm his, and that we push each other and support each other, and hard parts, great parts, we talk about, we work through them.
Right.
And I couldn't ask for anything better. I'm so grateful.
See, and that's sometimes, like, this has been a horrible, horrible time. No
Yes.
question about it. People have lost lives and businesses, all that. But man, if you've been able to come out the other side of it, you're like a diamond that's been under pressure. It's just a whole different thing.
And God willing, I hope sooner than later. And you got, if it's okay to say, you got your vaccine because
I'm a firefighter, right?
Yes.
I got both. And my wife's a nurse, so she got both of hers. So,
Great.
there's a confidence in that. Not that I'm not going to get it, but more
Right.
like I'm not going to spread it. I'm never going to be part of the problem. I like that to me.
Yes.
That to me means more than anything else. My mom got her first. I can't wait till she gets her second. I'd like to be in the room with my mom.
I know.
And I'd like to be able to kiss and hug my mom.
I know.
And I didn't get a chance, with her husband Carl. I'd like to get that chance with her, and I'd like to see my dad again and his wife.
Yes.
I'd like to see, like, right now, here we are with each other. I'd like to be in person and see someone smile again.
I know. If I was with you right now, I'd be like, bring it in. Like, I'd want to give you a huge hug.
Yeah, because this is the stuff,
This is the stuff.
It
is. It's
everything else is just, clothing, places. Yeah. This is the stuff.
This is the stuff. I just have to thank you again. Like, and you guys know there's been stuff with my health, and like some days it's very hard to do this. Some days it's very hard it's a lot of work editing and doing all the podcasts. But even when it feels hard, I'm so glad we did this. It changed, not just like me in this moment. You made me so much better just on a whole. I'm so glad for this time together.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's what's that phrase? It's more value than jewels.
That's what. There's no words. Yeah.
It's truly the priceless. It's truly the priceless gem.
Truly. And there's so much, and I'm going to have you on again, because I'm going to want to ask you more about being in the toy business. And
love that.
These are fascinating things. The travels you've done. We'll definitely do a part 2 to talk. But I'm so interested in all this stuff, and you're a very interesting as well as wonderful person.
Well, that's awfully kind of you. Beyond kind of you.
No, it's
and again,
it's right on.
Well,
and before we end part 1 for today, I do have this part of my show, which you've seen it before, so you probably know. That's called the feather in your cap. And by that, there's always never like the most proper way to describe it to people, but pretty much what I mean, if you've had a success or an achievement, something that's meant something to you, that has served you to make you better, or that stays with you to maybe help you in the future. If there's something that you have that's a feather in your cap that you'd be willing to offer the people with us today.
I try not to think about this because I wanted it to be something that came from a real organic space.
I know. I do that with myself sometimes. I'm just like, what's the feather?
Don't have to, because then it's not real. Then it's kind of artifice,
Yes.
I know we've touched a lot about the business. So, okay. My very first callback. So for people who don't know, people who are watching this who aren't actors, you generally just audition in a room with maybe one casting director, maybe a second, and a
Yeah.
camera, and that's it. But when you get called back, the room is usually full of people. Now you get the same casting director, but then maybe you get the head of the casting agency, you get the client, which is ever the account, you get the ad agency, the director, the lighting director, a whole bunch of people have to sign off on it. So
Yep.
I'm in my first callback for a very large telecommunications company. And I was the dad in a nuclear family. At that time was two parents, two kids. So I walk in the room and I know the casting director and I knew the head of the casting agency, but I didn't know anybody else. And this woman looks at me like she has this aha moment, like she knows me. And now I'm new, so I haven't worked with her before.
Yeah.
But I'm going through my mental Rolodex. Did I go to school with her? College? High school? Do I know her from Staten Island? Do I know her from Westchester? Like, what's the deal? Couldn't figure it out. Had to get it out of my head because we got a scene to do.
Yeah.
So we start doing the scene, and we're doing the script, first of all. And then we go to the second take where we're doing something around. And in the middle of the second take, she goes like this. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, and of course, because I was new and I didn't know this works. I'm like, I'm going to book my first job. Like there's something she loves about me. Like she's going to go to bat for me in the room tonight, when it comes down to selects and stuff. I'm like, this is going to be great. So we finish the scene and we're thank you very much. Walking out the room. And as we're walking out the room, she says, you know what it is about you? And I thought to myself, I am going to cement this for everybody in the room. I'm going to book this right now. This is going to be incredible. And I said, no. I said, what? I said, I can't place where, you look like we know each other.
Yeah.
No. You look exactly like my ex-husband's brother. And the minute she said ex-husband, I knew that gold could have come out of my mouth and I wasn't booking that gig. So the lesson I took away from that, and it was a very important lesson to learn early on. There are so many variables that you cannot control. So don't try to control them. And you can only be who you genuinely are. Be that person and let everything else go and know that it's not your fault and you can't do anything else about that. Just bring you and your choices to the game and eventually something cool will happen.
That I needed to hear that today. I literally had a situation happen like this yesterday and was talking about it today where it was somebody else's transference. And because I was telling somebody the story and they were like, they're crazy. Like, what's wrong with this person? I'm like, you know what? I must remind them of somebody and they may not even be aware of it.
Right.
But I at least I knew enough that it wasn't about me.
Right.
So like what
or maybe
you're
you
saying,
said a phrase that someone else they didn't like said.
Exactly. It's, and I think they don't even know sometimes. Like she actually pinpointed what it was. Sometimes people don't even know. They just go, and it's because you remind them or so. So they're like you said.
And if you can divorce yourself from that, you'll be so much happier in this industry.
So
and I
much
think
happier.
honestly, so much happier in life. You can hold yourself responsible for the stuff you say and do, but the other stuff you can't.
Such a great feather. And it's so I needed to hear that so much right now because
we were meant to talk about this today. This
seriously.
Is perfect. See, everything happens for a reason. We could just disregard the rest of the podcast. That was just that is Guys, you and I.
I'll put a note in the front. Skip ahead. Dude, you're so great. Tell us, tell everybody where we can keep up with you, and of course, I'll post it with the episode anywhere they can see your work and just follow you. And all that good stuff.
Most of my on-camera work is either on iSpot.tv.
Okay.
What it's been released, I put on my YouTube channel, which is under Peter Flihan, Flihan. And you can find me at Insta, Flihan_NYC. I'm on LinkedIn, Peter Flihan, and of course on Facebook with everyone else.
Yeah.
Same name. You can find me there too.
Great. So guys, I'll have all these links so you can definitely keep up with Peter. And so thank you guys for being with us. Thank you. I
Yeah,
have to
thanks
thank
everyone for
Peter so
joining
much
us.
for yeah, guys, this was so great. And guys, keep this going. Like, rate, subscribe. I know you're supposed to push that stuff. Subscribe. It's, it helps, I guess. Still learning all this crap. But it helps. And we love you guys and we love being connected. So all that good stuff. And leave a comment on YouTube or on the pod. Let us know if you want to hear more about a certain thing we talked about. And for the next time we have Peter on. So oh, it's happening, man. It's done. What's your wife's name? If it's okay to ask
Dina.
her first. Dina. So tell Dina, we're going to book you. I love that. Tell Dina we're booking you for round 2. We'll schedule. It's such a wonderful time having you. Thank you.
It's been great fun. It
so
feels like
much.
it's been 2 minutes long.
I know. That's why I'm like, I still have so much I want to ask you. We'll get there. We will.
Great.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you again. And we'll see Peter another time, and we'll see you guys next week. Thank
Thanks, guys.
you.